about naturopathic medicine as a whole, just to give you a general rundown of what it is, what to expect, my professional journey along the way, a couple of case studies to give you an idea of what it's like to actually treat a patient, what you'll actually see, and some of the awesome characteristics that keep me in this profession. Some of the major benefits of being a naturopathic doctor and going through the training, some of the challenges along the way, and more importantly, how to overcome these challenges to basically find a path that is right for you. And we'll have a Q&A session at the end. So as you said, anything that maybe isn't clear or that we didn't address at all and that you're interested in, please send your questions in. Moving forward, what is a naturopathic medical scope? So I wanted to actually define this and use some pictures because this is something that wasn't clear to me when I started the training. The naturopathic scope changes a little bit depending on where you practice, but I'm going to define it as this green circle here. So this is going to include things like your nutrition training, your botanical or plant medicines, potentially traditional Chinese medicine, prescription medications, etc. There's quite a bit in the potential naturopathic medical scope. So where does a naturopathic doctor fit within this? If we look at this purple circle here, this purple circle is one example of a naturopathic doctor. This person, for example, has chosen to just focus on nutrition, chosen to focus on traditional Chinese medicine and, say, botanical medicine, and has chosen not to work with prescription medications, not to work with, say, IV medications or nutrition, anything basically outside of that scope. They are not working to the full potential scope because they found something that works for them and that seems to work for their patients. This is one option we have in the profession. You can also be a specialist. We can decide, you know, I've had the best results with everything that I've tried through the training. Homeopathy seems to be the thing that is right for me. You have the option to completely hone in and focus on that and basically exclude the other types of treatment options to whatever extent you feel comfortable. That's part of the beauty of the practice. You can choose what fits right for you and you can decide to specialize and get really good at one thing, or you can basically choose a broader scope that encompasses more of what we offer. To explain myself, this final blue circle is what I would describe myself as. I practice to the majority of the scope. I do prescribe medications at times. I primarily work with nutrition, botanical medicine, some supplements, the odd times IV nutrition, but I don't do a lot of homeopathy, and I work with a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, so I'm happy to refer her these kinds of patients. I love what I do. I can basically pick and choose with what the patient needs because I have this huge scope to decide from. If I wanted to, I could decide to work in more of a specialty for that patient if it's something that seems to fit their picture. If it's more along the line of what they need, I'm happy to offer that, and I love that I have the option to do it. So given the changes in scope, what defines naturopathic medicine? It generally comes back to the naturopathic principles. I wanted to bring this up for two reasons. First, I love this. I think this is something to be proud of. First, do no harm, the healing power of nature, treat the cause, treat the whole person, teach the patient as you go through, and prevention and health promotion. The second reason I wanted to bring this up is the healing power of nature. It's actually something that, again, I misunderstood completely right off the bat. I felt that it was treating people using only natural means to the complete exclusion of anything synthetic or any treatment that didn't fall in that natural category. This isn't necessarily true. While we do sometimes prefer to go the simplest, most natural means, this principle actually refers to the patient in front of us and to that inherent ability and desire of the body to heal itself. So I love that as a practitioner, I am helping people to heal themselves. It's very empowering, and we can remind patients that we can remove the obstacles, we can help give them tools and tricks to get them there, but in the end, they're healing themselves. So what does my professional story look like? I started off in the Bachelor of Science. I moved from there into the Bachelor of Science in Nursing, after which completing, I became a registered nurse. From there, I went back to get some prerequisite courses that were not part of the registered nursing program. Became a naturopathic doctor through the Bruce Institute of Naturopathic Medicine. Many fond memories there, I had a lot of fun. And immediately upon graduation, I joined Port Moody Health, which is one of my local clinics. It's actually just across the street from where I work, which worked out quite well. If you have the option, I'd recommend doing the same. It's a beautiful thing. So what does this actually look like from the perspective of changing careers? Well, my story, I originally started with an interest of being a medical doctor. It sounded awesome. I took some aptitude tests that pointed very much toward medicine and very much toward the perspective of helping people and getting to know the body, how the body works, and how it all basically fits together. I didn't really know what this meant. Just diving into the career possibilities, it sounded awesome. It was almost that simple. So from junior high into high school, this is the direction I wanted to go. When I actually went into the Bachelor of Science and into the nursing program, I had a chance to basically see how healthcare works. When you spend some time inside the hospital, you get a chance to see what all is around, how the systems work, how the medical doctors, the nurses, the physiotherapists, etc., how everybody works together and what their role really is in healthcare. I felt that it's a beautiful system. I think we're helping a lot of people, but at some point I realized this isn't necessarily where I want to be. It's not a good fit for me because I wasn't comfortable. I was treating many patients at once, and if you're like my wife who works in intensive care, she's also a registered nurse, this works fine. I mean, she can bounce back and forth between many patients if she needs to. She can handle a very complex arrangement of problems from multiple patients at once. It's not something that I was comfortable doing. So I realized I wanted to change. I wanted to look at what the options were. So I considered sticking with being a registered nurse. I considered from there potentially a nurse practitioner because you get a little bit more of a scope. You have the ability to diagnose and prescribe where we live. And I love the idea of continuing the education because I loved it. The education was a lot of fun. Finally, my wife actually found the naturopathic medical program. Originally, I didn't know what to expect. I was a little bit uncomfortable with the term because I felt to some extent like a healthcare professional and expert. I had spent some time in the hospital, so I understood how healthcare worked together, and it just wasn't something that I had the exposure to. I'm thankful that it was brought up to me and that I had a chance to actually look into it because it wasn't what I thought it was. I feel that as time goes on, and depending where you live, the information is really getting out there. We're figuring out, or the public in general is figuring out what naturopathic medical doctors are. But at the time, honestly, I was one of the people who just didn't know. So when looking into it, we had the scope that I wanted, we had the freedom, we had the ability to help people. We weren't actually in the hospitals, so we could spend the time with people and one-on-one care in your office. Basically, you and one other person, you have a chance to close the door and really get to know what was going on. That was foreign to me. I just didn't have that opportunity working in the hospitals. So that's definitely a big part of what turned me toward becoming a naturopathic doctor, and absolutely a big part of what keeps me here. Another big part of what keeps me here is what actually happens with the patients. And I feel this is where it gets really cool. This is where we have the opportunity to really see where this medicine potentially shines. So I'm going to take you through a couple of case studies. The first case study, this is Bob. He's a very real patient with a fictitious name that we gave him just for the purposes of the presentation. That is also not a real picture of Bob, but aside from that, everything is accurate. And this is a very real person that I can actually still picture today. It wasn't that long ago. So he is an active male of 45. He is always running. He's always playing street hockey. He is making all of the correct choices and trying to do what he can to help his health. However, he has eczema very badly. So head to toe, and I literally mean head to toe, his head, both of his arms, both of his legs, his body, front, back, his entire body has eczema. It's in patches. It's not every single spot, but it's the most intense eczema that I've ever seen. So giving a bit of an idea of where Bob comes from, he saw a dermatologist who prescribed a number of different options to him. Eventually, he ended up working just with the steroid creams because that was the only thing that could cause some sort of difference. Unfortunately, it didn't benefit him beyond a few months. It helped him out, and then he basically plateaued and went back a little bit. So he wasn't very far ahead of where he started. When I originally saw him, he's had no progress in the last 2 years. That is a long time to have an itchy, uncomfortable, and frankly, something that really affected his self-esteem because that was one of the first things that he felt people saw when they looked at him. It was very important to him to get rid of this so he could be more comfortable, so he could look and feel his best. So he sought help. He went to numerous dermatologists, numerous medical doctors. He went to a number of other practitioners as well. And in the end, he was told he'll have to live with it because oftentimes eczema is considered, atopic dermatitis is considered to not have any cure. So what actually happened when we saw Bob? So we went through, talked about his diet, we talked about his stresses in his life, basically got to know him. I had the opportunity to sit down with 1 full hour and go through his intake form, go through his history, and get to know what brought him into my office. We started with basic dietary adjustments and supplements, and definitely nothing too complicated. I mean, you'd pick this up in first and second year naturopathic school. We did a blood test to determine food sensitivities. We had the sense that the foods were a contributing factor. His history really pointed in that direction. The more questions we asked, the more it seemed that his symptoms would flare and then drop off. There was this waxing and waning phenomenon that possibly was related to food, so we really wanted to dive into that as much as possible. After about 2 to 3 weeks when the results came back, on top of some of the dietary adjustments, we eliminated those food sensitivities, meaning anything that showed up in the blood test as being unusual, as being basically flagged as food sensitivity. We got him to completely stop eating that for a period of about 3 to 4 weeks, after which time we were going to reassess, possibly reintroduce the foods to see how his body reacted. We didn't get to that point. When I saw him, after the food sensitivity test, he came back. He didn't have any itching. The itching was completely gone. It was mind-blowing. I mean, for a man who had such intense rash, intense itch, intense looking eczema throughout his entire body, he came back and he had some dark spots where the skin was healing, but he no longer had this problem. So imagine this. You have a patient that comes to you completely hopeless. They've tried everything that's been offered to them, but given the wide scope that you have access to, you can offer them something different. You can give them hope back. I feel that that was a huge part of what I was able to give him before any of the treatments. You know, there are other options that we can try. I think that we can help you. It's hard to know exactly what degree we can help you. I don't like to guarantee people success because I don't feel that that's necessarily a good idea. But we definitely helped him. His life is different. I haven't seen him since that time, but one of his friends actually came in to see me, and this was about 3 months after the actual treatment, after I saw him and he was completely better. And his friend said he was doing even better. In hockey, he basically wears a headband. He gets a rash from that. That rash is also gone. He is completely cleared up, and he's been sending a couple of patients my way. He's very happy with the results, and he wants to spread the word. So everybody wins. It was incredible. And one of the big parts that keeps me coming back to this profession is that we can help people who otherwise don't have hope because we have a very wide toolkit and we have a perspective on the human body that I don't feel is common enough in healthcare. I mean, we understand that we're not healing people. We are helping to take away some of those obstacles to cure. And in this case, the diet was the crux of his case. And I love that one. I actually had a lot of fun with this case. Case study 2. This is Barb. Barb is a female in her late 20s. She had low energy and she can't lose weight. So when she came in, she seemed quite peppy. She was a lot of fun to actually talk to, get to know. But when she goes home, especially after a work day, she feels that her energy just drops. And she has a long history of being able to lose weight whenever she wants. She had a little bit of flux, plus or minus 5 pounds kind of thing. And she was pretty comfortable losing that little bit of weight through diet and exercise and that sort of thing. She likes to do everything herself. She's that independent woman. I love to see it. It actually, I think, really helps her out that she's trying to find answers herself. But she hit a roadblock. She doesn't want to see other doctors. She didn't want to see a naturopathic doctor. Actually, she was talking to come to see me, but she was looking for options. She wanted to basically, oh, sorry, my screen just popped up here. She wanted to find options aside from everything that she had tried so far and to basically meet her goals of losing weight. There we are. Sorry about that. That was unexpected. So because she's had success before and she's now struggling, I'm thinking that something has changed in this time. It's hard to know exactly what that change is. She believes it's the diet, but her diet doesn't seem to have changed over the years. Dr. Google suggests that diet is key. When she looked it up, I can tell you that in any form of healthcare, you're likely going to be competing a lot with Dr. Google. There's a lot of people that come in and basically look up some of their conditions or what they think their conditions are before they come to see you. I love it. I love that people are motivated and they look into it for themselves, but sometimes it creates an interesting conversation. To add a little bit of complexity, she had a bit of a complicated diet or complicated history with her diet. Years ago, she had full-on anorexia and bulimia occurrences and had struggled with it for many years. For anyone who's treated this or who's personally dealing with it, you're likely aware that it's often a chronic condition. It's something that you deal with long-term. So with my goal of helping her reach her goals and to lose weight and increase her energy, I didn't want to trigger a relapse of some of the symptoms that she's had before. So I had to be very cautious of this, and this steered me a little bit more away from the diet than I would normally go. So another testament to the large scope. It was awesome to be able to just completely change gears, go a different route, and find something that worked for her. Of course, this was all done through conversation of what she was comfortable with, what she has tried before, but we started off with education. So I did want to address food, and I wanted to try to help just ever so slightly reshape the relationship that she had with food. I know that I can't do it in one visit, I can't do it in 5, but I wanted to plant some seeds and be sure that at least she's had this conversation before. The role of food is to build our bodies, to make us stronger, and to give us the ability to do what we want to do. It helps us grow, it helps us to be better. Her perspective on food was quite a bit more negative, that food is the enemy, food is the reason I'm losing weight, and food is basically something to avoid or to feel guilty about. So I wanted to help to reshape that a little bit, just through some of the education. We did some lab tests. I threw on some details for those of us who are a little bit more aware of some of these lab tests. Her thyroid was basically low functioning, so she had a high TSH, low T4, T3. Her anti-TPO wasn't a problem. We assumed her adrenals were low. We didn't have the opportunity to test. There is a financial investment for some of these tests. Adrenal testing is one of them, and we didn't have the option of doing that, but she had the symptoms of basically a low cortisol, low adrenal function, and her iron status was normal. Those are 3 things that generally you test when the energy is low. You look at thyroid, look at adrenals, look at iron status as basically a general overarching principle. And in her case, this made a big difference. Because her thyroid was out, we had an easy target. We had something to hit. So I did some basic minor counseling along the lines of the education and to focus less on the food as the enemy, and let's try to let's try to address the thyroid. Let's try to address the adrenals, and let's make that the focus rather than changing the foods at this point. It went well, actually. We were able to rebalance the thyroid basically through supplements and eventually a little bit of a nutritional change. The adrenals, we helped to revamp her sleep schedule. We helped to get her back on course with what her body was meant to do, instead of basically staying up late, waking up very late, and finding a system that didn't work well for her. And the next time that I saw her, she had lost 4 pounds, which was about halfway to the goal that she was trying to reach. She was never a large girl, but she would have been more comfortable losing that weight, so I helped her out. And she felt amazing. I mean, her energy levels were incredible. It really boosted what she thought of herself, how she felt about herself, how she interacted with her husband. And it was a success story for a person that otherwise might have struggled to actually find those answers. We didn't have to turn to thyroid hormone replacements. We didn't have to do anything too aggressive. We were able to find part of what the problem was for her and address it directly. I had a lot of fun with that. So naturopathic medicine in general. Why would we choose this over other professions? There are many healthcare options, and honestly, I would encourage looking through what some of the options are to give you an idea of what everybody does, what their role is in the overall healthcare scheme, and what feels right for you. These are the top reasons why I think naturopathic medicine is a high pick on my list and potentially on yours as well. Practice freedom. I really can't speak enough to this. If a patient comes through my door who has a condition that would normally be treated in a certain way, I have the option of completely changing that direction and going down another route that feels more appropriate for them, which means that the time that I spend with them, getting to know them through their history, through their intake form, through all of their lab work, if we decide to do it, through everything, I can act based on the information in front of me instead of following a protocol, instead of following what would otherwise be a very limiting standard of practice. We do have some standards, obviously there's rules that we have to live within. We're always trying to help people and keep them safe, but freedom goes a long way. And with some patients, like say the eczema patient, we've tried so many other options. He's tried so many medications. He's tried so many creams on his skin. This wasn't working. This isn't the direction that's going to get him better. So we had the option to completely go a different route. And it's liberating. It's absolutely a freeing feeling to think, if I tried something with him and it didn't work, I could try something else. I have many options under my belt. And if I tried something with all patients who had, say, atopic dermatitis or a digestive concern, and I wasn't getting results, I can completely redefine my approach. I can reinvent what I'm doing until I find something that works for me, that fits within my values, and that works for the patient and helps them get better. It's an incredible freedom. The training and scope. So the training, like I said, I was in the Bachelor of Science in Nursing, became a registered nurse. So I can speak to some of the comparative qualities of the two programs. To become a naturopathic doctor after being a registered nurse, I honestly thought that I would be reviewing a lot of the same concepts, that I would be basically hitting the same level of anatomy and physiology that I saw in nursing, and it would be a review throughout the entire program. It did start off that way. I was very happy to start from the beginning, work on the basics, the fundamentals, but honestly, the training was to a greater depth. The anatomy was deeper, the physiology we went further into, and surprisingly, even the pharmacology and how the drugs work. I was surprised that I learned more in the naturopathic medical program than I did in the nursing program on those aspects. I learned a ton of other things in the nursing program, and the naturopathic medical program prepares you for a different role. So in those aspects, you actually get a different type of training and different depths of training. So our ability to prescribe and our ability to diagnose for where we practice basically means we have to learn these things. We have to learn how to fully diagnose an illness. We have to learn all of the aspects and fundamentals of prescribing, which is different than my role, what my role was as a nurse. Of course, that changes depending on where you work. But I was blown away by it. I was actually shocked that it was hard, considering all the training that I had before. I actually still struggled with the anatomy training. Excuse me, I'll actually take this off here. The scope, as we talked about before, is awesome. It gives us the ability to really have a true freedom. If we had the freedom to do whatever we wanted, but we only learned one or two potential treatment options, the freedom that we would not be the same. We wouldn't really have that eclectic board of options to choose from, to see the patient in front of us and think, this would be good for this patient, and all of this would be good for another patient. Because we have access to so many things, we can offer unique treatments to each patient. We can truly offer unique treatments. I feel there are buzzwords like personalized medicine and unique, individualized care. I don't believe that as many practitioners do that as they claim. I feel that naturopathic doctors are in a unique position to offer a little bit more individuality, a little bit more personalization, and I believe more importantly to really support the body rather than trying to change the functions. There are various different approaches we can take, but we have great training in building the body up, making the body, mind, body, spirit stronger so that the person can basically heal themselves. And finally, the deep patient connection. Well, Friday or Saturday, I had a young girl come in. She came in with her mother. By young, I mean she was 17. and she had concerns of psoriasis and some other concerns. Anyway, point being, after 1 hour, we had the intake. We had the intake forms. We went through a whole bunch of questions. Both the mother and the daughter were thanking me numerous times in the treatment room and out for the front desk for the time that I'd spent with them, for the time that I'd spent explaining some of the tests that they've already had done, explaining what some of them meant, explaining, say, the x-ray and some other imaging that they actually had, helped them go through the report to understand what was going on. I spent a lot of that time explaining what was already done and what is already happening to their bodies. Unfortunately, the people they had seen before didn't fully go through this information. I had a chance to really connect with what they needed and really offer them the information that I think they were after. Obviously, she wants to get better. Obviously, she wants to improve her health. But she was really missing that connection and that deeper understanding of what's going on with her own body so that she can be empowered to help heal herself. Spending the time that we are able to spend with patients, often half an hour or 1 hour intakes, you create a connection that allows people to open up, allows them to be truthful and fully explain what is going on with them. This absolutely helps in their care. This absolutely helps with helping them go from wherever they are to wherever their goal is, to bridge that gap and really get them to wherever their goals are. It's worth quite a bit, and I feel that it deserves mention. It's one of the potentially unique qualities of our profession. Potential challenges. As I said before, I did not want to offer a completely one-sided, biased opinion of naturopathic medicine being all rainbows and lollipops and butterflies. There are challenges along the way, and there are challenges once you get into the profession. So it's important to understand what these are and to understand how to overcome them, what some of the tools and strategies are to actually move forward and not have these be the reason or the preventative measure that's holding you back from reaching something that you otherwise want to do. So number one, the rigorous education. I can tell you it is intense. I'm very proud of this. I feel that it's necessary. Given the wide scope, we absolutely need to spend time to train, to learn how the body works, to learn various different treatment options, to learn how it all fits together. The big picture stuff is where I feel the real training and the real potential healing happen. Instead of learning how this one component works, how this fits with that, and breaking it down into individual parts, we have to understand the individual parts and then take a step back. If we're focusing on the trees and we miss the forest, we're completely missing health. We're completely missing our opportunity to really help most patients. So involved in that is an education that is fairly intense. It's going to affect your social life, absolutely. It's going to affect your free time, absolutely. It's going to potentially be beyond anything that you've done before. I considered the registered nursing program to be intense. It was not to the same level as the naturopathic medical program. To apply in to basically every school in North America, you have to have at least 3 years, generally 4 years, a full degree before you apply into it, so they can crank the intensity up a little bit. And I feel that's something that we should try to be ready for. So to be ready for this, we need to learn how to take breaks. And it's funny and as simple as that sounds, it's very easy to feel that I'm going to learn all of this material, I'm going to get ahead of all of it, and then I'm going to stop. I can tell you, as somebody who's tried to do that and who was otherwise academically successful, you cannot learn it all. Unfortunately, medicine is large, and naturopathic medicine is huge. There is so much to it, so it takes time to actually learn all of this. If we understand that going in, we can be prepared for it. It's going to be busy, it's going to be challenging, it's going to be a lot of fun, it's going to be super rewarding. But we have to be ready for it. If you understand that going in, you have a leg up. The public perspective. So this was an interesting one. And part of this relates to the Canadian perspective. I live in Canada, so that's where what I'm exposed to. But Canadian beliefs often include not paying for healthcare. So when you are a naturopathic doctor working basically anywhere in Canada, you're generally not covered by the standard medical system, which means there is a fee for service and people pay often out of pocket. Many have extended benefits and there's ways around this, but often they don't, or all of the services or treatments that we offer aren't always covered. There are some things that, although we may cover the bulk of the treatment, there might be, say, IV therapies or prescription medications, or even just basic herbal medicines that aren't part of the included plan or the included insurance that they have. This was a change coming from nursing or coming from a system where people didn't pay me anything. I wasn't aware of the dollars. I knew that I would get paid at the end of the day. I just would forget about that, offer the best level of care, and not think twice about the dollar signs. It changed to actually be aware of what I was charging people, and patients were aware that they would often have to pay. So at first, this was a bit of a turnoff for me. It hit me harder than I thought it would, but I've re-examined as time's gone on, and the more patients that I see, the more I get a perspective of the investment that comes with actually offering money and coming in to see somebody. If you offer your services freely, I guarantee at some point you will have people that come in and abuse your services. They will spend time with you that they don't fully want to commit to your treatment, to your assessment. They're not all that interested in what you're offering. It's unfortunately part of the game. If they offer money, if they give some sort of commitment up front, you are much more likely to actually have a good relationship with them. You're much more likely to actually have a beneficial effect, because right off the bat, they're committed. They want to get their money's worth. They've already taken that step forward, and they've already put themselves out there saying that I'm willing to give something up in exchange for better health. That's actually a huge benefit when you have motivated patients. That helps to keep me motivated. That helps to push me to be my best and to give them their value. If somebody comes in and is paying money, I absolutely want to give them their money's worth. Not that I wouldn't anyway, but it brings it to another level and helps to involve me more personally. It helps to give me that challenge that I need to keep pushing forward. It just helps keep that at the forefront a little bit more. Also, from the public perspective, the idea or the training that nurses receive versus the training that naturopathic doctors receive, or any other basically professional. As soon as I got into nursing, I remember in the first month, I had people asking me what this rash was, what is going on with their health on another aspect. When I joined into naturopathic medicine, some people were asking me the same questions. Others were just basically, so what are you learning? What do you do? There is a disconnect between some of our training, some of what we offer, and what the public knew. I think part of that is because our scope, if you remember back to that scope image, we have a massive scope. We have so many options that we can offer. But if you see one practitioner, one naturopathic doctor versus another, you can get a completely different experience. You can see vastly different assessments and tests and treatments, etc. It can be all over the map. I think this causes a little bit of confusion. So again, it's both the pro and the con of potentially what the profession does. There's differences. I think it's a beautiful thing, but it does confuse people. And the public's perspective, the odd, confused patient, most people get it. Most people do understand, but it was surprising to me because everybody knew what I did as a registered nurse, or at least they had a general idea. They thought they knew. Cost and income. The education is an investment. The same as any education program, you generally have to pay for it. It was quite a bit more expensive for me to go through the naturopathic training than it was to go through the actual nursing training. In the end, a good chunk of students come out with student debt or family debt, or however they decide to go through with it. You'll have students that come in and basically have a large amount of debt from their undergraduate education. You'll have others that come in and they have complete financial support from their past business ventures, from family. There's a very wide scope. I mean, in my own cohort, we had everything. We had completely covered to people who were basically struggling. It was right across the map. Basically, our entire class graduated. There was never a problem with finances, so that wasn't actually an issue that they hit, but it is something to be aware of. So student loans, government loans are likely something that you'll have to look into if you don't have something set aside. That said, once you graduate, you have the opportunity to make all this back. The earning potential is incredible. As naturopathic doctors, because we can offer so many different things, we can offer, say, webinars, not that this is a paid thing, you can offer recorded presentations to offer to people. You can offer, I'm considering writing a book at some point. That's something else that you can also leverage. You have incredible training that not a lot of the world has, so you can actually put that out there in a way to offer education and potentially make an income back to offset the investments that you've made. There are many ways around that. Again, I feel it's important to just be aware of it before you go in so that you have a chance to actually think through what some of your options are. What do I wish I knew? Before I started the programs, before I even applied in, I wish that I had talked to the universities directly right off the bat. I feel that I had many perspectives that were somewhat negative. I felt there were unrealistically high expectations. And eventually, when I went in to talk to the Boucher Institute of Naturopathic Medicine, I went directly in, I talked to the Dean of Admissions. It was a nerve-wracking conversation because I wanted to be there, but I didn't know what it would take. I didn't know how the conversation was go, and they completely put me at ease. I got the information directly from the Institute. I learned a lot. It was incredible. I absolutely would recommend going to talk to them directly. Another benefit is that I talked to them sometime before I actually had the opportunity to apply. I had some prerequisite courses to go through, and they had my face and my name in their minds for some time. I absolutely believe that when you're applying into a place, if you get to know them before you actually apply in, it gives you a little bit of a leg up. They will know that you've been considering this option for some time and that it's something that you're taking seriously. You're actually taking the time to go in and talk to them. They absolutely appreciate that. And getting the information front hand helped me to not be afraid of it. It helped to ease some of the worries I had that maybe my grades weren't quite high enough. I wasn't sure how many courses I would have to take. A lot of the information was online, but it wasn't the same. And getting the information directly from a person whose job it is to talk you through that process is absolutely valuable. I highly recommend it. Second, connect with a local MD. I can offer you so much information, but it will always be a little bit biased by where I live and the experiences that I've had. Even if you were to start up a practice 2 cities away from me, it'll be a different experience than what I had. You'll have a similar scope, but beyond that, the business, the atmosphere, the local competition with various, say, healthcare facilities will be very different. So if you connect with somebody who is roughly in the area that you want to practice, ideally who has a scope similar to what you want, you will learn so much. It is incredible. There are many ways to do that. If you haven't seen a naturopathic doctor, book in, try it out, see what it's actually like. I'd recommend looking on their website or getting to know them a little bit first to find somebody that jives well with you, that is going to be a good introduction for you because they are so different. The beauty of what we do is you can find personalized options. And you also have the option of connecting with them even by email. I mean, if somebody was to email me and say, you know, I'd love to go out, say, for a coffee, let's talk about this. One of our local coffee shops, I was in there doing some work, and I don't remember actually how we met, but I started talking to one of the baristas, and she was interested in naturopathic medicine. I was happy to give her some contact information, like email me, shoot me a message. I would love to discuss it further because that's part of what I did. And I learned so much. I learned some of the shining benefits, some of the big draws, and I learned some of the challenges and how to overcome them in a way that was relevant to where I lived. Absolutely valuable. Please go and see somebody local to you. And finally, if you do have to take prerequisites like I did, look at what the options are. The first college or university that I considered, I would have had to have taken, I believe it was 3 terms worth of courses. I was able to find a distance program. I believe it was Athabasca. There's probably many available to you, but I was taking courses through this distance program and locally because they had different requirements as to what order to take courses. I didn't have to finish these ones before starting the next ones. For the distance courses, some of them just basically they ordered it differently, so I was able to take some of the courses at the same time. Absolutely saved me time. It was super valuable. If this is something that you need to do, I was able to shave months, absolutely months off of the build-up time so I could get into the program and start doing what I loved sooner. So definitely something to consider. As for my own current and future plans, I want to keep building. I keep training to increase my scope. The most recent training I've had was in advanced injections. So I actually offer, or I trained to actually offer injections into joint spaces, into the spine, into the neck, into the thoracic, the lumbar, all of that. And they basically encourage regeneration of some of the body's own natural tissues, which is incredibly cool. And there's a lot of research on it. So it's not something that I was trained to do out of the basic education, but it's within that scope. I just have to get extra training to actually fully reach that scope. There's many other things that I can do yet. I love that. I'm going to keep expanding. I'm going to keep learning. And the continuing education is definitely going to carry me forward. I love that freedom. And like I said, I'm considering writing a book. I have a basic intro lined up. I have a person who's created a number of textbooks, Dr. Nikita Visniak, who I hope to actually pair up with and create this book with. So some incredible options out there, and I love the freedom that I can offer some of the expertise in a way that makes sense to me. I want to make an anatomy book that is specific for martial artists. I've always been interested in the combat arts, and I feel I have a lot to offer to that I haven't seen on the market yet. So pretty incredible. I also would love to open and operate my own clinic, multidisciplinary, have the freedom to bring in whatever practitioners the people need. I'd love to work with chiros, physios, massage therapists, nutritionists, and inter-refer so we can learn from each other. We have the options of doing that. So I wonder, what would your future plans be if and when you decide to become a naturopathic doctor? So, career guiding principle. You may know this gentleman. His name is Confucius. He hasn't been around for a long time. He offered a quote back, it was over 2,000 years ago, a very long time ago. And he said, choose a job you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life. I loved this. This was great. I felt that it was a little bit of a euphemism, that you can't love every single day, and sometimes you're going to have a little bit of work to do, whether it's paperwork or you have something that's a little bit harder for you that day. But I've worked in a job before. I used to work in excavation before all of this, and I got paid a lot. I loved payday, but there were many days that weren't payday that were unfortunate for me. I wasn't really happy. I wasn't fully fulfilled, which led me on to going into another direction. So I challenge you to find something that you love, to find something that gives you the freedom, that gives you the possibilities that you're after, and go for it. I mean, really assess what it takes to get from where you are to where you want to go. Really assess how happy and comfortable and how good of a fit what you're doing now is. I mean, I'm assuming that there's some question there if you're watching this webinar. And if it's right for you, have the courage to try. I mean, lean on other people, lean on the resources, talk to the school. They're great at actually offering those resources to make these things easier and simpler for you. And remember that there's a short-term discomfort for a long-term of benefit if you make the right career choice, if you find something that is really right for you. The best way to do that is to get the information from local NDs, from the actual education institute itself, and watch the odd webinar. You can learn a lot. So here's my personal contact information. If you did want to contact me directly, I welcome it. So my personal website that is freshly up and running, drlucasmac.com, feel free to visit that. I had a logo made up. One of the other benefits of going into this profession, you have the freedom to make up your own logos. Of course, I had help. I'm nowhere near artistic enough to develop that, but I actually love it. I had a lot of fun doing this. And my email, Facebook, and LinkedIn are all there. They're all under my own personal name, so feel free to look me up, add me as a friend, and I'd love to keep the conversation going. So I hope this has been educational, informative, hopefully a little bit fun as we've gone through. Definitely a lot of information in a relatively short amount of time, but there's a lot of tips and tricks that I wish I'd known along the way. And I condensed what I thought was the most meaningful into the webinar. So I hope you felt the same way, and I hope you had as much fun as I did. I'll pass the mic back to my colleague.
Thank you so much, Dr. MacMillan. I really do appreciate your time, and we do have a couple questions here. Before we go to those questions, just wanted to let folks know we've got a few upcoming events. Next month, our board president, Dr. Fraser Smith, who is also the Dean of Naturopathic Medicine at National University of Health Sciences, will be talking about the hidden things that can warp your metabolism and hurt your heart. Lots of stuff in the environment as well as diet that can impact your metabolism and your cardiovascular system. And then we will be focusing on weight management in March. And so each month we are happy to bring you these webinars and get to hopefully the things that you're thinking about. If you have topics that you want to see us, we usually send a survey on how we did on this webinar afterwards. So please fill out what you would like to see if there are things that maybe we haven't covered. So I'm going to cover a few questions that we've gotten in so far. So Dr. Lucas, let's see, there was one question here. If you could just cover in a little bit more detail how you approached that thyroid case and what exactly it was that you did with them to get it to turn around.
Okay, yeah, great question. So regarding the thyroid case, yeah, I was considering shifting back to the slides, but basically, so the TSH was high, the T4 and T3 were low, but they didn't have the anti-thyroid globulin antibodies. I always like to check those antibodies while I do the general screen because I have the option of potentially offering a hormone replacement if that's actually something that that patient needed. So to give you a little bit more context on that case, the TSH was right at the higher cutoff. It was, I'm trying to remember the numbers. I believe it was in the high 4s, whereas the high cutoff is about 5.5. And the T4 and T3 were just scraping along the low level. So technically it was within normal range. It was just right on the edge. I wanted to support that where I could with diet and supplements. And if you remember the case, she had an interesting relationship with food in the past that complicated a little bit. I didn't want to just send her home with a diet diary that might make her overly aware of her food and address it that way. But specifically for the thyroid, I offered a supplement that focused on some of the conversion factors. So there is, say, selenium, magnesium, even iron. If iron is low, it can prevent a little bit of the conversion from T4 to T3. I wanted to encourage her to eat regular meals in a way that would keep her thyroid up. If you stop eating, or if you don't eat regularly, your thyroid production starts to go down because your body goes into that sort of starvation mode. And the way it does that is by affecting your thyroid hormone. If you turn thyroid hormone down, like T3 and T4 down, your metabolism slows down and your body is better able to actually support its health without burning through too many nutrients. So if you keep a constant flow of nutrients in, sometimes it's enough to actually sway that TSH a little bit. Beyond that, precursors for actual thyroid hormones, so tyrosine. When we talked about her sleep and her adrenal health, I really believe that the adrenals were part of the crux in her case, a big part of the turning point. When we helped to rebalance her sleep, talked about basic sleep hygiene, decreasing the amount of light exposure that she has when she's trying to sleep. Even simple basics, she had an Apple product, which I'm sure other products do as well, but there's an option to turn off the blue light emitted by this device. So I talked her into putting those on her computer and on her phone or tablet or whatever else that she uses for at least a couple of hours before she goes to sleep. She wasn't able or entirely willing to make those changes to completely cut them out. So we tried to find some damage control. We gave her some herbal adrenal supports. Trying to remember exactly which one was most appropriate for her, but there was ashwagandha, rhodiola, excuse me, a number of nutrients as well. We didn't end up having to go the actual glandular route. It's a little bit more aggressive in my opinion. So it was largely through supplements and lifestyle, just being aware of her sleep, being aware of what was slowing her down and actually taxing her body. I try to explain to people what I call the bucket theory. If you have symptoms, a lot of times that's actually your stress bucket, I'll call it. So physical stresses, emotional stresses, any toxic exposures, lack of sleep, etc., will fill this bucket up. Once that bucket's full, you start to have spillover with any small thing. So then you can have skin issues, you can have sleeping issues, and it can actually start to affect your glands, your hormone production, your thyroid, for example. I wanted to decrease the overall load in that bucket. And I feel that a big part of that for her was stress management, sleep, and then giving her the basic nutrients so her body could build itself back up. So I hope that answers your question. I would have considered thyroid hormones if it was a necessary, if she was that far out of range. It's definitely something that I am personally not opposed to. I'm really happy I was able to help her without going that direction, but I do feel it's appropriate in some cases.
Sure. Thank you so much. So we have a bunch more questions here I want to try and squeeze in if we can.
Okay.
So there, let's see, there are a couple questions here kind of related to education that I just want to talk about. So have you seen people from different career and education come through the ND program? And I can speak to my own personal experience. My classmates varied. When I went to ND school back about 20 years ago, my class was fully varied. We had everybody from accountants and engineers to flight attendants and nurses and massage therapists, and really, you know, the gamut of people. I think now what I have seen is because of the internet, there wasn't really internet back then, I date myself, but because of the internet now, we do have the ability, people are finding out about this a lot sooner. So we don't quite see as many career changers. We are definitely seeing more younger folks finding out about this sooner. But that's not to say that people don't, you know, say, hey, you know, I've got a family and I'm not able to move right now, but 5 years from now, my kids are going to be out of high school and out of the house, and I can start this. And so we see that all the time. We see folks who change careers or change paths or have had this in their heart for a very long time and finally find the time and the wherewithal to make it a reality. And so, you know, we heard Dr. Lucas's story, and, you know, it's very common to hear, you know, people will have to kind of take a step back and take a look at the prerequisites and what's involved to make it a reality. But here at the AANMC, we're really happy to help you. Don't give up on yourself. You know, a lot of times I'll get emails from people, oh, I think I'm too old to do this. And, you know, that is not the case. You know, we have people who have started this degree in their 60s. And so, you know, I don't want to see people, you know, give up on themselves before they've even given themselves a chance. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but
that sounds perfect. Absolutely. Yeah, we had a lawyer in our class who was actually trying to practice being a lawyer and go through the program at the same time. So she ended up falling behind a couple of terms because of it, but that was a super interesting mix to me, and she plans to keep both alive following. We had a number of people who were in kinesiology, personal training, like you say, a huge variety, and a huge variety of educational backgrounds as well. It wasn't just people from healthcare. There was one other nurse in my class, but primarily it was, I guess we saw a lot of sciences, we saw a number of arts. I think that variety is a beautiful thing, and you can bring something unique to the profession if you have different training yourself.
Yeah. So there are a couple questions here about, you know, the conventional medical system and some of the differences, and you've worked in both, I've worked in both. You know, I think, how would you kind of really quickly demonstrate the differences in seeing a naturopathic doctor versus going the conventional route?
Okay, it's going to change a little bit for where you live. My perspective is biased to the Canadian, Western Canadian perspective, but if you see a naturopathic doctor, you have a lot more time with the healthcare system. It's almost summed up by that alone. You have the time to go through more assessments and potentially the time to go through more like treatments that aren't quick solution based. So for example, medications that you get for skin rashes or for digestive concerns, you're likely to get a much more thorough assessment because we have many more treatment tools, and you're likely to get a broader arrangement of treatment options. So depending on who you see, those could completely change. I mean, some people are, like I said, very focused in traditional Chinese medicine. Some people are focused on another aspect. Some people are completely eclectic and will basically offer a treatment plan that offers bits and pieces from all of them. So in the naturopathic profession, I think you would more so expect, like the biggest difference is you'd spend more time with the person and you would get a treatment plan that reflects that. It's a little bit more of a coaching aspect, generally speaking. There's another question here that I just want to answer directly. Can a single parent do the program? Absolutely. You know, I think anyone with children knows that it's always a juggle. You know, if you're working professionally and you've got kids,
life is never going to go exactly as you plan it. So, that said, having support networks, having, backup sitters on your backup sitters and all of that in place is probably wise. But, in my class, and I've seen colleagues of mine who have gone through the program as single parents, I can't say it's easy. Being a parent in general isn't easy, folks. And Dr. MacMillan is a brand new parent. Congratulations. But, I cannot say as a mom myself, I can't say it's an easy thing to do, but it can be done. You just need to, obviously have it planned. And, what I saw when I was in school and when I talked to, and there's the little wee one. Proud daddy. When I was in school, I saw, honestly, the folks who were parents, they had it down. They had their schedule set up. They had their study time set. They were so efficient with everything that they did because every moment counted. And so, what I would say is, yes, single parents, parents in general, absolutely can do the program. Don't let any of that distract you from your goals. You just have to come up with a plan that works for you and your family. And we got a comment here. Such a cute baby.
Thank you so much. Yeah, she's awesome. Her name's Chloe. She's been a lot of fun.
Okay. And then here's another one that we often get to, and this is a little sensitive. I know how I respond to this. But if I'm putting you on the spot, feel free to to send it over to me. But have you ever had to deal with people that said you weren't a real doctor?
Yes, I have. Actually, I don't think you'll watch this webinar. I'm just thinking of, sorry, how much to say, but yeah, no, I've had basically like family members who weren't as aware of what naturopathic medicine is, and I've had people say, well, why didn't you choose to become a real doctor? And it hits you a little bit strangely, especially off the bat, and eventually you start to realize where it's coming from. And it's an honestly coming from a place of not really understanding what the training is, what we do, and how we can help people. So yeah, I have. It's pretty rare in the clinical setting because if they're coming to see you, chances are they believe in what you do to some extent. I definitely had some men come in whose wives told them they should, and they told me flat out, I don't really know what you can do, and I don't know if it was because I was a naturopathic doctor or just because they didn't want anyone to help them, but right off the bat they weren't as into it. But honestly, I've had some success with those cases. There's this part of me that kind of enjoys that, where when they come in and they're unsure, you can build, and there's a lot of room to grow, and you can really blow their minds. As for people on the street, my wife is a registered nurse. She's had some friends who've asked some questions that are hinting along that line, that they're not sure what we do or what our training is, and they're uncomfortable with it. That's okay. I mean, it does take a little bit to get used to if that's not something that you've been exposed to. If you come from, say, nursing, I guess, where generally people understand what you do. But I think that it's valuable to be a little bit different than what the common, I guess, treatments offer, or what the common professions offer. And it's a really fun place to be, because we can offer most of those things, if not all of those things, and we can offer so many other things. I mean, in some ways, we're the jack of all trades, right? I mean, we have access to so much. That makes people uncomfortable, and you get used to it as time goes on. You start to realize that I'm in a beautiful place, and not everybody's going to understand that. That's okay. No matter what you do, you'll never please everybody.
Yeah, and and I think that when I get questions like that, a lot of times people may not be aware of what we are. Maybe coming from a place of just misunderstanding or misperceptions, and so I use it as an opportunity. The one thing that I've learned in life, as being a triple minority, is to never take things personally. And so I try to, when somebody comes at me with something that is potentially inflammatory, it doesn't, there's the wee one.
There you go. She's got a little scratch on her face, unfortunately. But yeah, and my beautiful wife, Brittany. Sorry for interrupting. I had to show them off.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, she's got on Dr. Scrubs.
Say hi, Chloe. She's like, I'm hungry. I want to just
Yeah, so, you know, with people who are coming at you in potentially an antagonistic perspective, I always try it, you know, getting antagonized is what they want. And so if you respond with anger or you respond with an emotion, that's what they're trying to get at. And so I use it as an opportunity. I said, wow, you know, that's a really great point. Let's talk about it. What is it that you think? And, you know, and spin it around and use it as an opportunity to educate. And if somebody is open to educating and open to, you know, active dialogue, I'm happy to have it with them. If there are people who really just have an opinion and just want to tell you off, then, you know, they're not open to dialogue, and that's really, you know, you're not going to get anywhere with those types of folks. So, you know, I think at the end of the day, I always come when people are open to dialogue and they're open to understanding and learning and having an active conversation. I absolutely support that opportunity to teach them and to let them know about what it is I do and my training and all of that. So anyway, you know, that's how I would answer that question. I know that we're just about out of time right now. If I'm looking at my clock here, we are done, but I will try and take one or two more questions. And Dr. MacMillan, if you need to cut out, I understand. I can handle the rest of the questions here, probably from here on out.
Okay, I'm happy to stick around.
Okay. Let's see. All right, so we've got one question, if you can answer before we cut this off, is can you explain a little bit how the medical system for naturopathic doctors works in Canada? Because I know we have some folks kind of asking us about insurance reimbursement, and in some of the states here in the U.S., south of your border, insurance will cover naturopathic care, will cover lab tests, will cover office visits and things of that sort. But in Canada, can you explain that just a bit?
Okay, yeah, great question. So in Canada, as a naturopathic doctor, we are not covered by our basically MSP medical services plan. So patients pay out of pocket for virtually everything. Where this is often covered is through extended benefits that people get through their place of work. So if they're self-employed, they can purchase a program that basically is an insurance for themselves that can cover naturopathic medical services. And for the services that are covered, it'll vary based on what kind of program they have with their employer. So for example, most patients have, say, 80% coverage. Some have 100% for the initial visit, which is often between 160 and 200 Canadian dollars. Not sure what that's worth to the American folks. It's probably not as much, but the tests, like say that food sensitivity test that we talked about before, give or take, about half of the patients who want to get it done are covered. If they want to get, say, an IV, intravenous nutrition or intravenous therapies, that is generally not covered. So it depends on what you offer. Acupuncture or anything that we offer as part of our personal service is what we do in the visit. You can generally cover as a naturopathic service, and usually that's the one that's 80% to 100% covered. I should add, there's often a cap on that where they can get coverage up to a certain amount. Some people have coverage only up to $200, which is slightly more than the initial visit. Others have coverage that either never ends or that goes up to $1,000 or more. $1,000 being $1,000, sorry. So it does vary by the person that comes in, and their coverage is primarily from their place of work. So depending on what their position is and the type of benefits that they get through that work, largely changes the amount of coverage that they get. But most people, I mean, I imagine that for the patients that I see, just to throw out a ballpark, I haven't entirely worked this out, but I'd imagine that they pay for about 30% of what they do with me as a general overarching theme. Some people hardly pay anything or not at all. Others pay quite a bit more because maybe they're focusing on things that aren't covered.
Thank you so much. And you know, insurance, and especially now in the United States, insurance is getting even harder to understand. It's always something that I tell folks: go to the state or province, the country of origin, and that those are the best places to get information from the regulatory bodies and the state associations or provincial associations on insurance and on coverage and scope. And so with that, I am going to thank you so much for presenting today. We had a lot of wonderful feedback. on your presentation. People really appreciated the talk, and I very much appreciate you for coming and spending time with us, and give that little baby kiss from Auntie JoJo over here in California. And
Will do, absolutely.
Awesome, and thank you all for coming, and for those of you who still may have some questions, I'll hang on the line for just a little bit. Thanks so much, Dr. MacMillan. Have a great day.
Thanks so much. Perfect. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.